For linguist Arthur Sterling, the Sumerian tablets weren't just ancient history, they were the world's greatest mystery. He knew the official translations were wrong. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea or just some water, and sit back as we begin this journey together. There was a code, a secret hidden within the 5,000-year-old words. He spent 3 years obsessed, staying up all night, searching for the true meaning of a Sumerian concept about divine power. And when he finally arrived at an indecipherable phrase, northern breeze, 3 times, door opens, the answer didn't come from the books. It came from a being. A blue light flooded his office, and an alien materialized in the center of the room. Not to negotiate, but to correct Arthur's mistake. You're close, but you translate with your mind. You need to translate with your soul. The truth is that the Sumerian tablets are not mythology. They are a technical manual for human activation that humanity has been programmed to forget. This alien translated these texts in front of Arthur, and what he revealed about our origin will make you question everything. The question is, what happens when you discover that our civilization was built with instructions that we've lost? Arthur Sterling was 56 years old and absolutely convinced he was losing his sanity. Not out of paranoia, but because he spent entire nights, literally whole nights, without sleep, poring over impressions of Sumerian tablets that no rational person should find more interesting than sleep or a functional social life. But Arthur wasn't exactly a rational person when it came to dead languages. He was a freelance linguist, fluent in 8 modern languages, and reasonably proficient in 5 dead languages: Latin, Greek, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Ancient Egyptian, and for the last 3 years, he had been completely immersed in cuneiform, the wedge-shaped script that the Sumerians used 5,000 years ago. And the more he learned, the more frustrated he became because official academic translations published in respected journals and expensive books were glaringly inconsistent, insultingly superficial, and worse, far too literal, treating complex texts as if they were shopping lists or bureaucratic records. Such and such a king did this, such and such gods did that, offerings, wars, constructions. But Arthur was reading original cuneiform, not second-hand translations, and he saw patterns, repetitions, structures that weren't simple narrative. They were something more: instructions perhaps, code, a technical manual disguised as mythology. And nobody, absolutely nobody in the universities seemed interested in exploring this seriously. His wife, Eleanor, was worried, not subtly, but openly. "Arthur, you're obsessed. This isn't healthy. You barely sleep, you barely eat. Clients are complaining that translations are delayed because you stay up until dawn with these old tablets that don't even pay for anything." And Arthur knew she was right. But he couldn't stop because there was something there. Something crucial that humanity had lost, or forgotten, or perhaps deliberately buried. And he was so close, he felt it viscerally. Tuesday night, early December, Cambridge, already cold and dark at 5:0 inches the afternoon. Arthur was in the makeshift office on the 2nd floor of the house. Small, cramped, walls covered with impressions of tablets, notes in 3 different languages, books piled up everywhere, and he was working on a specific section of a tablet catalogued as ME37 on the Sumerian concept of me, a single word that official translations simply called divine power or sacred knowledge, but which clearly meant much more. It was as if the Sumerians didn't have an exact word, so they used a symbol that carried multiple meanings simultaneously: technology, authority, capacity, essence, all together. And Arthur finally, after weeks of racking his brain, had deciphered an entire section that no official translation mentioned. It was there in clear cuneiform, but ignored, and the literal translation that came up was, "Northern breeze 3 times, door opens, stone inside shines, soundless voice speaks." And Arthur looked at that written in his own notebook and said aloud to the empty office, "What the hell does this mean? Door? What door? Stone? What stone? Is it a metaphor? Code coordinates? What?" He tried to interpret it. Northern breath could be a literal wind or a geographical north or a metaphor for something cold and distant. 3 times could be ritual, repetition, a sacred number. Door could be a physical entrance, or a metaphorical portal, or opening of consciousness. And the more he thought, the more frustrated he became, because he knew he was translating mentally, logically, analytically. But Sumerian texts were not logical in the modern sense. They were experiential, written by people who lived a different reality, saw a different world, and to understand them, one needed to think as they thought, feel as they felt, not just decipher symbols, but absorb meaning beyond words. He threw his pen on the table, rubbed his tired eyes. 2:00 the morning. Eleanor had been sleeping for hours, the house silent except for the cold wind rattling against the windows, and Arthur seriously considered giving up, going to sleep, accepting that perhaps he would never fully understand, that the mystery would remain a mystery. But then light appeared, not through the window, although there was a window there, but inside the office, the center of the room between the desk and the bookcase, pale, blue, and growing, not like a lamp turning on, but like reality tearing through. And Arthur turned in his chair, frozen, his mind still processing that this was impossible, and there was someone there. Something, a form materializing in the light, not entering through the window or door, but simply appearing, building itself, molecule by molecule. Tall, thin, smooth, gray skin, slightly large head, huge eyes as black as deep wells, and Arthur should have screamed, "Run!" or woke Eleanor. But his linguist's mind, a mind trained for communication and symbol analysis, instinctively activated, and he found himself trying to speak, not screaming, but trying to establish contact. "Hello. Who are you?" Alternating between English and Portuguese and even absurdly attempting Latin. The creature didn't move its mouth, but the answer came not in sound, but directly into Arthur's mind. Not words exactly, but images, sensations, meanings that formed a clearer communication than verbal language. And Arthur understood, not gradually, but instantly, as if he had learned a new language in seconds. Observer, scholar, witness of your species for millennia, present when the Sumerians wrote what you are trying to translate now. I know what it means because I was there when it was written, and you are close, closer than any modern human has ever been. But you're on the wrong path. You translate with your mind. You need to translate with something more. Arthur processed that initial shock, giving way to insane curiosity. You were there in Sumeria when they wrote that? And the creature replied telepathically, I was not physically among them, but observing, documenting, and what they wrote wasn't history or mythology, as your academics think. It was a manual instructions, spiritual technology encoded in the language they had available, and the literal translation you made is grammatically correct but completely wrong in meaning. Because it's not about a physical door or literal stone, it's about activation, an internal process, and I'll show you if you want to see. See how? Arthur asked, still half expecting to wake up because it had all the characteristics of a lucid dream except that it seemed too solid, too detailed. And the creature replied, I can share memories of when the text was written, show context, intention, and then I can show what the text really teaches when applied, not read, but practiced. Are you willing to see the truth about what the Sumerians knew, what the Anunnaki taught, what humanity lost and is beginning to remember now? Anunnaki? Arthur repeated. Sumerian gods. You're saying they were real, not myths? The creature tilted its head. Not gods. Not in the sense that humans use the word, but visitors like me of different origin. And they left knowledge not necessarily out of kindness, but for their own reasons, experiment, perhaps, or preparation. Motivation doesn't matter. Knowledge matters, and knowledge is encoded not only on tablets but in you, in DNA and ancestral memory. Tablets are just a map. The body is territory, and I can show you both if you accept. Arthur looked at the table, at the printed ME37 board, at the translation he had made. The north wind 3 times opened the door, and thought of 3 years of obsession, frustration, the conviction that there was something more, and now an alien, an impossible creature, offering an answer. And he knew he should be skeptical, that this violated everything he knew about reality. But he also knew that such an opportunity would not return. So he said, his voice firmer than he expected, Show me. I want to see what they really wrote, what it really means. Everything. The creature approached, its movements fluid and almost floating, and said before touching, "Go see Sumeria as it was. You will hear a living language, not a dead one. You will understand that their civilization was not primitive but different, advanced in ways that modernity has completely lost. And you will see the practice, the activation that the text describes, not theory but demonstration. And then, you will decide if knowledge is relevant to you now in modern life, or if it is just historical curiosity. Ready?" Arthur nodded, his heart racing, and the creature touched his forehead with a long, cold finger, and the office vanished. Cambridge vanished. The present dissolved, and Arthur was falling through time. Utter vertigo, and when his vision stabilized, he was where he recognized immediately, even though he had never been there. Ancient Mesopotamia, the Euphrates River in the background, scorching sun, and a city of mud and brick and people. Real Sumerians, not an academic reconstruction alive, speaking a language he had studied but never heard. And he was seeing through the alien's eyes, its perspective from 5,000 years ago, observing something that would change everything Arthur thought he knew about the origin and purpose of humanity. Arthur was seeing through eyes that weren't his own, a higher perspective, subtly different colors, a wider spectrum capturing tones that humans didn't perceive, and all around intense dry heat, not like modern summer, but ancient heat, dust, and relentless sun. And the city of Uruk stretched out, not ruins, but vibrant, alive mud brick buildings in earthy tones, narrow streets with people circulating, merchants, priests, workers, and Arthur heard language, spoken Sumerian, not written, sounds he had studied silently for years, now alive, guttural, but melodic, and he understood perfectly through the alien's perception, every word clear. Vision followed a specific group, 6 men in different, more elaborate clothing, not ordinary Sumerians, but visitors, and Arthur recognized them immediately, even though he had never seen them before. They were the Anunnaki, as the texts called them, but seeing them now, he realized they weren't gods in the mystical sense. They were like the alien beside him, visitors of another origin, taller than average Sumerians, with slightly different proportions, skin with a tone that wasn't exactly human, but almost. They passed for humans from a distance, but up close, there was something different, brighter eyes, more precise movements, and they carried objects that Sumerians looked at with reverence, mixed with fear. Vision sped up, days passing in minutes, and Arthur saw a pattern. The Anunnaki didn't live among the Sumerians constantly. They appeared periodically, staying for weeks or months, teaching things, then leaving again. And what they taught wasn't agriculture or basic architecture, as modern academics assumed. It was deeper knowledge. Arthur saw a specific session, a room in a ziggurat, the main temple, with only priests present, and an Anunnaki speaking, not in Sumerian, but in their own language, which the alien translated for Arthur, explaining about me, a concept Arthur had tried to decipher hours earlier. Anunnaki held a small object, perhaps a crystal or a technology that resembled crystal, glowing faintly, and said to the assembled priests, "This is not power we give, it is power we activate within you. It is already present dormant in the structure of every human since creation, but it needs to be awakened through a specific technique. It is not magic. It is knowledge of how the body and consciousness function at levels that ordinary senses cannot reach, and I will demonstrate it." He placed a crystal in the center of the circle, instructed the priest to sit in specific positions, not random, but geometrically precise, and began to teach a breathing technique, not normal breathing, but a specific pattern. 3 short breaths through the nose, 1 long exhalation through the mouth, repeat. And while they did this, he instructed them to visualize. Imagine light entering with the air, not a metaphor, but real photons carrying information, descending to a specific point 2 fingers below the navel, accumulating there like a battery. Arthur watched through the alien's perception and saw what humans would not see. Energy actually accumulating, not imagination, but a physical phenomenon in a spectrum that normal eyes cannot perceive. The priests' bodies beginning to glow subtly at specific frequencies. And the Anunnaki continued, Now sound, vocalize the frequency that I will teach you. It is not a word with linguistic meaning. It is a vibration that resonates with specific cellular structure, activating dormant sequences in the genetic code. He taught us sound, something between a deep vowel and a buzzing, and the priests repeated it 3 times as instructed, and Arthur felt through the alien's memory a change happening, not dramatic, but real. Something in their bodies activating, literally activating, as if a microscopic switch had been flipped at the DNA level. And a younger priest gasped, hands trembling, eyes wide, and said in Sumerian, "I see. I am seeing things. Light all around patterns. It's as if the world has an invisible layer that I can now perceive." The Anunnaki nodded in satisfaction. This is the beginning, the first activation, an expanded vision. With practice, you will develop more healing through directed thought, communication without words as we do, manifestation of reality through focused intention, longevity through conscious cellular regeneration, all possible, all already encoded within you. You have simply forgotten how to access it. And we remind you. But understand, priest, this knowledge is dangerous if used incorrectly. That is why we encode it. We do not give it openly. You will write it on tablets, but not literally, symbolically, in layers of meaning. Only the ready will understand. Only those who practice with the right heart will access it completely. The vision changed again. Weeks later, same ziggurat, but a different room. Scribes working. And Arthur saw it. There it was. A tablet being written on the specific one he had translated hours before. Me 37. And the scribe was carefully carving cuneiform. North breath 3 times. Door opens. And Arthur understood now. It wasn't about a physical door. North breath was a breathing technique. North represented the direction of energy. 3 times was the exact number of repetitions. Door was a specific point in the body. A chakra, as it would be called in Eastern tradition. But the Sumerians didn't have that word. So they used door and open meant activate, not literally, but experientially. And the scribe continued writing, "Stone within shines, voice without sound speaks." And Arthur saw Anunnaki overseeing, approving, and meaning was crystal in the body. Pineal gland calcified in most, but capable of shining when activated, producing expanded vision and telepathy, voice without sound, and all encoded in language that seemed like history or ritual, but was precise technical instruction for those who knew how to read it correctly. Vision accelerated further. Years passing, generations, Arthur saw knowledge being practiced by a few initiates, carefully passed down, but also saw dilution happening. The Anunnaki visiting less and less, eventually stopping completely, and priests, who had been taught directly, dying, the next generation, having only tablets, trying to follow instructions but losing context, experiential meaning turning into empty ritual, and then foreign domination, tablets being buried, destroyed, scattered, knowledge fragmenting until only archaeological pieces remained that modern academics tried to reassemble without having any idea what they really were. And then the vision showed something more disturbing. Arthur saw deliberation. Anunnaki in a ship above Earth. Not a poetic description, but a literal one. A metallic structure orbiting and discussion among them. Humans are not ready yet. Activations are creating imbalance. Some using knowledge to gain power over others instead of self-elevation. We need to pause. Let it mature naturally. Return when collective consciousness reaches a minimum level of ethical development. It may take millennia, but it is necessary, and the decision was made. Departure, leaving only planks like dormant seeds, awaiting a future era when humanity would be ready to understand without destroying itself with knowledge. And Arthur saw through the eyes of the alien, that specific one who was now in his office, a final farewell, looking down at Uruk, at the civilization they helped shape, and a final thought engraved in memory. One day they will return to this. When the cycle is complete, when they have forgotten enough to remember again without arrogance, and we or other observers will be there to guide those who are ready. Vision dissolved. Arthur pulled back through millennia, utter vertigo reversed, and he was back in his Cambridge office, the alien removing a finger from his forehead, and he staggered in his chair, his mind exploding with what he had just witnessed. Not theory or speculation, but vivid memory. Real or elaborate telepathic projection didn't matter because he felt the visceral truth of it. And he looked at the creature and whispered, "So tablets aren't history or mythology. They're a technical manual instructions to activate something in us that's sleeping, and they purposefully coded it because humanity wasn't ready. But it's saying that now we are. Now is the time to relearn." The alien nodded. The cycle is completing. Collective consciousness has reached a point where knowledge can return. Not to everyone, not instantly, but to those who are ready. And you, Arthur, spending 3 years obsessed with tablets, were being unconsciously prepared, guided to be exactly here tonight when I appeared. And now I show not only history, but practice. The real technique that the tablet describes, first layer activation, the same one that priests learned 5,000 years ago. Do you want to experience it? Do you want to feel knowledge, not just understand it intellectually? Arthur looked at the alien, then at the printed tablet on the table, that translation he'd done hours before and hadn't understood, and said, "Yes, I want to try, but how? I don't have a crystal like they did. I don't know the exact sound they taught." The alien replied telepathically, "You don't need a physical crystal. It was just a focusing tool. The real crystal is inside you. The pineal gland I mentioned, calcified in most modern humans by diet and lifestyle, but still functional if activated correctly and sound. I can transmit the exact frequency, not through your ears, but directly to your consciousness, and you will replicate it. Ready to begin?" Arthur nodded, nervous but fascinated, his linguist's mind now expanding to include body language, frequency, vibration, not metaphor, but literal. The alien instructed. First posture. Sit comfortably, spine straight but not rigid, hands on thighs, palms up, receptive position, feet on the ground, connected, and breathe normally first. Calm the mind. Let anxiety about the experience dissolve. The technique works best in a neutral state, not frantic expectation. Arthur adjusted his position in the chair, following instructions, took a few deep breaths, and the alien continued. "Now comes the first part of the text you translated, breath of the north. It's not about literal wind. North represents descending energy from the cosmos to the body. Breath is a specific type of breathing. 3 short, quick inhalations through the nose, feeling the air enter, and imagining not only oxygen but light information, subtle energy descending along with it. Then a long, controlled exhalation through the mouth, emptying completely, and repeat 3 times in total. Understood?" Arthur confirmed. "It seems too simple." And the alien replied, "Simplicity doesn't mean ineffectiveness. Complexity was added by humans later. The original form was straightforward, practical. Now try it. I'll watch." Arthur closed his eyes, inhaled 3 short breaths through his nose, feeling the cold air enter, trying to imagine light, even though it seemed silly, and exhaled long breaths through his mouth, repeated. Second time, third time, and upon finishing the 3rd round, felt something subtle, a slight dizziness perhaps, or a change in pressure, not dramatic, but present. Alien observed and said, "Well, that was preparation. Altered oxygenation creating a slightly modified state of consciousness. Now comes the second part. The door opens. The door is a specific point 2 fingers below the navel, an energy center that Eastern cultures called Dantian, or Hara. The Sumerians didn't have a specific name, so they used door-place consciousness there. Not visual attention, but internal sensation, as if you could feel that point from within. And, while maintaining attention there, breathe normally, but imagine each breath carrying light directly to that point, accumulating, not dispersing. Arthur tried harder than it seemed. His mind wanted to wander, to think about other things, to question whether it was working, but he forced his focus, 2 fingers below his navel, an internal sensation, and he breathed, imagining light descending there. And after perhaps 20 breaths, he wasn't sure of the time because he was focused. He felt something, a subtle warmth at that point, not intense, but definite, as if that specific area were more alive than the rest of his body. Alien sensed a change. Energy beginning to accumulate, still weak, but the beginning of activation. Now, the final part. The stone inside shines. A soundless voice speaks. The stone is the pineal gland, the center of the brain. It's already there, but dormant in you, as in most now, with established breathing and accumulated energy underneath. It moves consciousness to the center of the head, not the forehead, but deeper, the exact center of the skull. And there it visualizes a small crystal, the size of a grain of rice, which it really is, and imagines the light that accumulated underneath rising like a column through the spine to that crystal. Feeding, activating. Arthur did as instructed. A strange mental task, but he followed it. Center of the head, small crystal, light rising from the belly up the spine. And when he imagined the light reaching the crystal, something changed, not gradually, but abruptly. A flash of color behind closed eyelids. Not a color that had a name, something between violet and gold, and a sensation of pressure in the center of the forehead. Not painful, but intense, as if something were pressing from the inside out. And then, sound. Not external but internal. A low buzzing that didn't come from the ears but from inside the head. Alien said, "Don't be alarmed. It's the initial activation." The pineal gland responding. Now the final critical part. A soundless voice, rudimentary telepathy while maintaining visualization of the crystal shining. Think of something specific, not a complex word. A simple thought, and project it outwards, not forcing it, but allowing it to expand like a gentle wave. Try, Arthur thought. Eyes still closed, the imagined crystal shining in his mind, thought something simple. I am here, just that I am here, and tried not to think, but to feel expanding. And the alien responded immediately telepathically. I received it weak but clear. You have just consciously transmitted thought for the first time. Not accidentally, but intentionally. This is the beginning. The first level of activation. With practice, it strengthens. Clarity increases. Reach expands, and eventually other abilities emerge. Healing manifestation. Expanded perception. All sequential building upon a foundation. Arthur slowly opened his eyes. The room seeming brighter even though the lighting hadn't changed, the colors more vivid, and he looked at the alien and asked aloud, but also thinking simultaneously, "Is this real? Did it really work?" I felt something definitive. The alien confirmed, "Yes, it's real, but only the beginning, the first door of many. The tablet you translated describes only the first activation. There are other tablets, other texts, each encoding a deeper level, and you don't need physical tablets. Now the knowledge is within you through daily practice. Your body remembers. Your DNA recognizes ancestral patterns and responds. It's relearning, not new learning." "And what about the others?" Arthur asked. "Ordinary people, not linguists who have spent years studying. Can they do this too, or do they need specific knowledge?" The alien replied, "Anyone can. Knowledge isn't just on tablets. Tablets are maps, but the territory is the human body. All humans have the same basic structure, the same energy points, the same pineal gland, the same latent capacity. They've just forgotten, or were never taught. You're not special for studying Sumeria. You're just one of the first in the modern era to consciously reconnect with knowledge. But thousands, eventually millions, will do the same. Each one activating contributes to a collective awakening. The frequency increases for the entire species." Arthur felt the weight of it. "So, it's not just about me. It's about all of humanity remembering what we were capable of before we forgot." The alien nodded. "Exactly. The Anunnaki didn't create humans out of nothing, as some texts literally suggest. They genetically modified existing primates, added their own sequences, creating hybrids, capabilities beyond animal, but not complete, like them. Intentional limitations perhaps for control or protection. Debates about their motivation, but the result is clear. Humans have DNA that carries the potential for abilities they consider supernatural, but are only latent, natural abilities, and gradual activation is happening now. An era of awakening, as some call it, not mystical, but biological, evolutionary, the next stage of human development." "But why now?" Arthur asked. "Why not 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago? Why specifically this moment?" the alien explained. Planetary cycles, collective consciousness reaching a critical point. Modern technology paradoxically allowing access to ancient texts that were hidden. The internet spreading knowledge that was previously guarded by a few. An Earth entering a different frequency. Not metaphorically, literally. The solar system moving through a different region of the galaxy. Different cosmic radiation affecting biology. Everything converging the right time not by chance but by greater cosmic design, and some of us observers returning to facilitate the process for those who are ready. You are one. There are others, each receiving a puzzle piece as needed. And what do I do now? Arthur asked. Do I practice this daily? Teach others? Write about it? What? The alien said. Practice first. Stabilize your own activation. Don't skip steps. Strengthen the foundation. And then, yes, share. Not as a guru or teacher, but as a witness. Tell what you experienced. Offer technique without expecting a specific result. Some will be ready and respond. Others won't. And that's okay. Forcing never works. Knowledge spreads organically through resonance. The right people find it at the right time. And Sumerian tablets. Continue studying, but now, with experiential understanding, not just intellectual. Each text you decipher will have deeper layers revealed, because you will live what they described. Arthur still felt a subtle buzzing in the center of his head, a remnant of the activation, and looked at the alien with renewed urgency. You mentioned other abilities, healing, manifestation, longevity. Do the tablets describe that too? Are they encoded in the same way? The alien replied, yes. Each set of tablets addresses a different aspect of knowledge. The one you translated was about the first activation, expanded communication. But there are others. One specific one describes what they call Namlu, you, extended life, not immortality, but significant longevity through conscious cellular regeneration. Sumerians who practiced it lived 200 to 300 years, not a myth. Real biology, when DNA is activated correctly. Is that possible? Arthur asked skeptically. Conscious cellular regeneration, the alien explained. Cells constantly renew themselves. You know that. But the process degrades over time. Errors accumulate. Aging happens. But degradation isn't inevitable. It's programming. And programming can be altered. A specific technique uses visualization during deep sleep, specific brain waves, the body in a state of maximum repair, and consciousness directing intention to specific cells, ordering perfect replication without errors. It sounds mystical, but it's applied epigenetics, thought affecting gene expression. Modern studies have already proven the basic principle. Sumerian tablets only described practical application millennia before Western science discovered the mechanism. And healing? Arthur asked. How did that work? The alien continued. Similarly, consciousness directed to the diseased or injured area. Visualization of light. Not metaphorical, but real. Photons carrying information. Cells responding to a specific frequency. DNA having instructions for self-repair, but rarely activated without the correct trigger. Sumerian priests could heal wounds in days that would take weeks. Diseases that would be fatal became temporary. Not everyone had fully developed abilities, but those dedicated to the practice achieved results that modernity would call miraculous, but were simply optimized biology. Arthur processed that. So what we call miracles in ancient religious texts were people using biological technology that we've forgotten how to access. The alien nodded. Exactly. Jesus healing the blind, raising the dead, multiplying loaves of bread, Krishna demonstrating siddhis, Buddha achieving enlightenment, all access the same internal technology that the Sumerians knew. The Anunnaki taught different cultures, named it differently, but the essence is the same. Activation of latent DNA, conscious use of biological capabilities that most never develop because they don't know they exist or believe they are impossible, and belief limits reality literally. The mind creates parameters of what the body can do. Regarding manifestation, Arthur said, modern law of attraction, does that also come from Sumerian knowledge? The alien replied, partially. The modern version is simplified, incomplete. Sumerians understood that manifestation is not just positive thinking and waiting. It's alignment on multiple levels. Conscious thought, Yes, but also authentic emotion, deep belief, not superficial belief, and most crucially, inspired action. Tablets describe this as milam, radiant power. When a human is completely aligned, body, mind, and spirit vibrating at the same frequency, they become a magnet for the corresponding reality, not mystical, rudimentary quantum physics, observer affecting the observed, intention, collapsing probabilities. Arthur felt a mental dizziness, not physical, but conceptual. So everything we think of as recent evolution of spiritual knowledge already existed completely 5,000 years ago. It was just lost. The alien gently corrected. Not accidentally lost, partially hidden, and partially forgotten by design. After the Anunnaki left, priests who possessed complete knowledge formed hierarchies. Knowledge became power, and power corrupts. They began to keep secrets only for the elite. The masses received diluted versions, rituals without comprehension, worship instead of practice. And when empires fell, libraries burned, tablets were buried, knowledge fragmented. And also, the alien continued, there was a deliberate effort to conceal it. Groups throughout history realized that activated humans are difficult to control. A person who can heal themselves doesn't need the medical industry. A person who can manifest abundance isn't a slave to the economic system. A person who can live 300 years questions power structures based on short life cycles. So knowledge was actively suppressed. The burning of libraries wasn't always accidental. The Inquisition didn't only persecute heretics, but practitioners of ancient knowledge, witches who healed with herbs and energy, alchemists who understood transmutation not only of metal, but of consciousness. Arthur felt anger growing. So they stole this from us purposefully to maintain control. The alien answered carefully. Yes and no. Those in power concealed it. Yes. But collective humanity wasn't ready either. If knowledge were kept open during eras of violent tribalism and constant conquest, it would be used as a weapon. Imagine armies of humans activated using coordinated telepathy and directed manifestation for war. Devastation would be total. So perhaps it was cosmic wisdom that allowed for forgetfulness, protection, until sufficient maturity was reached. And now, the modern era, with all its flaws, still has a level of collective consciousness where knowledge can return without immediately destroying the species. But not for everyone at once, Arthur said. Understanding, you spoke about those who are ready. Not everyone is ready yet, the alien confirmed. Correct. And it's not a value judgment. It's not about being better or worse. It's about development. A child isn't ready to drive a car, not because they are inferior, but because they lack the necessary maturity. Some humans are ready for activation now. Others need more lives, more experiences, more growth, and that's fine, each at their own pace. But those who are ready will feel the calling, will attract information, will find texts, practices, teachers, or observers like me. Synchronicity is not chance, it's resonance. And what is my specific role? Arthur asked. Why me, an obscure linguist at Cambridge? Why not a famous scientist or a well-known spiritual leader? The alien replied. Because a role isn't about fame or immediate reach. It's about authenticity and preparation. You spent 3 years without external recognition or financial reward deciphering texts because something inside you knew you had to do it. That purity of motivation is rare, and you have specific skills. You can translate ancient knowledge into modern language. Bridge Sumeria in the 21st century. You don't need to be famous. You need to be precise, clear, dedicated, and you are. So you were chosen not for greatness, but for suitability for the task. Arthur felt humility and responsibility simultaneously. So I translate more tablets, apply practices, document experiences, and share when appropriate. The alien nodded. Yes, but always remembering knowledge without ethics is dangerous. The Sumerians knew this. That's why they codified it. They didn't want anyone with bad intentions to access power without first demonstrating character through dedication to study and practice. You automatically pass the filter by spending 3 years in unpaid obsession. You demonstrated that you seek knowledge for knowledge's sake, not for power over others. That is true qualification. And about those who will doubt, Arthur said, Academics will ridicule. Skeptics will dismiss it as pseudoscience. How do I deal with that? The alien replied. You don't deal with it. It's not your job to convince. It's your job to offer. Those who are ready will recognize truth through internal resonance. They won't need external proof. Those who are not ready will reject it no matter how much evidence you present, and that's okay. Seeds planted today can germinate in years, decades, even future. Lives don't expect immediate validation. Do quiet, confident work, and let results speak through the transformation of the lives of those who practice. The blue light surrounding the alien began to pulse, gradually intensifying, and Arthur sensed that farewell was approaching. He quickly asked, "Will you come back? Can I contact you if I have questions? If I get stuck on translation or practice?" The alien shook its head. "I won't come back. This single intervention is sufficient. You have initial knowledge tablets to continue studying. And most importantly, you have an activated connection now. When you practice regularly, answers will come from within, not from an external source. Activated DNA accesses ancestral memory. You will know what you need when you need it. Trust the process." Arthur felt a slight panic. But what if I fail? What if I can't translate other tablets correctly? What if the activation doesn't deepen? The alien replied patiently. Failure is part of learning. Don't expect perfection. The first translations after today will be better than before, but not complete immediately. Each practice deepens understanding. Each activation strengthens the next. It's a gradual process, not instantaneous. And you're not alone. Others are being activated simultaneously in different places. Eventually, you will meet, and the community will form organically. It's only beginning. The rest unfolds naturally. And about my wife, Arthur said. Eleanor, she'll think I've gone crazy if I tell her. How do I explain it without sounding delusional? The alien considered. You don't need to tell her everything immediately. Show it through changes in yourself. When she sees that you are more centered, less neurotically obsessive, but productively focused. When results of practice appear, health improving, mental clarity increasing, then she will ask and you share gradually. Demonstration is more convincing. Then explanation, live knowledge before preaching knowledge. The light intensified further. The alien clearly preparing to dissolve and said one last thing. A specific tablet. Look for ME 114. It hasn't been fully translated by academics yet. It's in fragments in a British museum. Images are available online. It describes second-level activation, expanded vision, perception of frequencies beyond the normal spectrum. It will be the next step after mastering the first level, and then ME 203, the third level. But don't force it. Each one takes months of practice to stabilize before advancing. Respect time. Respect the process. Prematurely pushing creates imbalance. Arthur memorized the numbers ME 114, ME 203, and said, "Thank you for showing up, for demonstrating, for trusting me with this." The alien nodded. Gratitude unnecessary. Observers only facilitate. Real work is always done by the human. You were ready. I showed up. Now you practice. Share when appropriate. And the cycle continues. Others will be activated through your resonance, not directly but energetically. Each person who practices raises the collective frequency slightly. Millions doing this simultaneously. Humanity reaches critical mass. Next evolutionary stage, not science fiction, inevitable biology. And with that, light enveloped the alien completely, dissolving molecule by molecule, the reverse process of materialization. And in seconds, she was simply gone, vanished, and Arthur was alone in the office at 3:30 inches the morning. Printed tablets all around. But everything was different now. They were no longer incomprehensible ancient artifacts. They were technical manuals written by people who knew things he was beginning to remember. He sat for a long time, processing, part of him still questioning whether he had hallucinated everything due to sleep deprivation. But a subtle buzzing in the center of his head remained. A sensation of heat 2 fingers below his navel remained. Something had changed on a level he couldn't deny even if he wanted to. And he looked at the translation he had made. Northern breeze, 3 times, door opens. And for the first time in 3 years of frustration, he smiled because now he understood. He finally fell asleep a few hours before dawn and dreamed vividly. Not fragmented as usual, but sequentially, of course. He was in ancient Uruk, not observing, but participating, practicing techniques with priests. And he woke up remembering every detail, not as a dream, but as a memory. And he knew the alien was right. Activated DNA accesses ancestral databases. Knowledge doesn't need to be learned from scratch. It needs to be remembered. In the following days, Arthur established a daily practice, waking up early before Eleanor and practicing breathing techniques, visualization, and activation for just 15 minutes, but consistently. He noticed subtle changes. First, physical chronic back pain he had for years decreased significantly, and his daytime energy increased despite sleeping the same number of hours. Eleanor commented without him mentioning it. "You seem different, Arthur. More present, less in your head all the time. Are you okay?" Arthur answered honestly but vaguely. "I'm practicing a new meditation technique, breathing and visualization. Reading about ancient practices, I think it's helping." Eleanor was pleasantly surprised. "You meditating? I never thought I'd see the day, but if it's working, keep going. You really seem better." And Arthur felt grateful that the alien had warned him, showing through change, not explanation. A week later, he returned to tablet ME-114, as the alien had suggested, found digitized fragments online, and translated them with strange ease. Symbols that previously took hours to decipher now made sense, almost intuitively. Not because his memorization had improved, but because he understood the experiential context, knew what to look for, and the text described exactly what the alien had mentioned. A technique to expand visual perception beyond the normal spectrum. To see energy fields around living beings, not a metaphor, but literal specific training of the optic nerve and visual cortex through exercises, combined with meditative states. Arthur began practicing the second technique gradually, not abandoning the first, but adding to it, building upon the foundation as the alien had instructed, and after 3 weeks of daily practice, he was in a nearby park on a morning walk, and looked at a specific tree, a massive old oak, and for a moment, a brief flash. He saw something, a subtle glow around the tree, not imagination, because it had texture, movement, an indefinable color, and it disappeared quickly, but it was there. The first glimpse of expanded perception, proof that the techniques worked and were not just placebo or psychological. A month after the encounter with the alien, Arthur was on a video call with a linguist colleague in Germany, discussing the translation of academic texts, and the colleague casually mentioned, "Do you know about that researcher in Kyoto, a cuneiform specialist? He recently published a strange article about Sumerian tablets containing practical, not just historical knowledge. The academic community ridiculed it, but the article was interesting, a different perspective." Arthur felt recognition, another being activated, another receiving a puzzle piece. The alien was right. He wasn't alone. Synchronicity wasn't a coincidence. He searched for an article, read an automatic translation from Japanese, and saw parallels with his own discoveries. A researcher in Kyoto had reached similar conclusions about tablets being technical manuals, not through aliens, obviously, but through dedicated study and growing intuition. Arthur felt compelled to contact the researcher, sending a respectful email sharing some insights without mentioning alien origin, focusing on translations and practices. The reply came days later, enthusiastic. "Finally, someone who understands. I thought I was alone in this. Can we collaborate?" And Arthur knew a community was beginning to form. Not large yet, not public, but a core of serious people dedicated to recovering real Sumerian knowledge, not a sterile academic version. And over the next few months, he connected with 4 more people: a linguist in Brazil, an archaeologist in India, a professor of ancient history in Oregon, a yoga practitioner in Australia, all arriving at similar conclusions through different paths. And as they shared notes, translations, practical experiences, the complete picture emerged clearer. 6 months after that impossible night, Arthur was in a small online group, 7 people from 6 countries, practicing Sumerian techniques together via video, guiding each other, sharing results, and all reporting changes. improved health, expanded perception, increased synchronicities, lives transformed not dramatically but profoundly. And Arthur realized, this is how knowledge spreads in the modern age. Not physical temples but digital communities. Not rigid hierarchies but collaborative networks. Different form, but same essence. The ready, finding the ready. One night, practicing alone in his office during a particularly deep activation, Arthur felt a presence, not physical, but energetic, and a thought came. Not his voice, but a familiar alien one. Not returning physically, but contacting telepathically across distance. And the message was simple. Well done. First wave of activation stabilized. Next wave beginning. Continue. And Arthur sent thought back. Gratitude, understanding, commitment, and the presence dissipated. But the connection remained, proving what the alien had said. Activation creates a permanent channel, not a one-time event. 6 months after that impossible encounter, Arthur was at a small online conference. 23 people from 12 different countries, all linguists, archaeologists, spiritual practitioners, independent scientists, united by a common discovery. Sumerian tablets are not ancient history. They are a technical manual for human activation that we were ready to rediscover. And he shared not just translations, but experiences, measurable physical changes, expanded perception, emerging telepathic connections, and saw recognition in their eyes through screens. Because they were all living similar versions, each finding different pieces of the same gigantic puzzle. And Arthur realized the alien was right. When one activates, energy spreads, others feel the call. Community forms on its own. Sumeria is not a dead past that we study in dusty books. It is the future that we are relearning. Biological technology that we lost and are now recovering. That alien retained memories for 5,000 years. He watched humanity completely forget what it was capable of. He saw generations living a tiny fraction of their potential, dying at 70 when they could live 300, sick when they could heal, isolated when they could connect telepathically. And he waited because timing matters. Seeds planted in the wrong soil will not germinate. Knowledge given prematurely destroys. But now, at this specific moment, the soil is fertile. Collective consciousness has reached a point where knowledge can return without humanity destroying itself with power. Arthur spent 3 years obsessed with planks without knowing why, until an alien appeared and revealed it wasn't random obsession. It was preparation, an ancestral calling activating, and you reading this now are not here by chance either. The algorithm didn't bring you here. Resonance did. Frequency recognizing frequency, activated DNA calling dormant DNA. The question isn't whether you have latent abilities. Everyone does. The question is, are you willing to activate them? Because activation requires practice, discipline, consistency. It's not about watching videos and expecting magical transformation. It's about practicing simple techniques daily until your body remembers what it always knew. Specific breathing, targeted sound, focused visualization. 15 minutes a day, every day, months, turning into years. And one day you realize your perception has expanded, your intuition has strengthened, synchronicities have multiplied, not because it gained something new, because it revived something old. Arthur wasn't special. He didn't have any unique gifts. He just had the willingness to practice when nobody was watching. You can do the same. Sumerian tablets scattered in museums around the world are not dead relics. These are love letters from ancestors. Instructions left for you, specifically for you right now, saying you are more than they told you, more than basic biology, more than a short, limited life. You are a hybrid human DNA with stellar code abilities beyond animal potential, beyond mortal. He simply forgot. And now, do you remember?